Good morning once again. Hopefully you can see myself and my co-host for today, John Whall. I'm just going to change my video settings because I do have another cheeky co-host with me today, and his name or her name or their name, we're not quite sure, is Bobot, and hopefully you'll be seeing Bobot joining me very shortly. No, okay, we'll come back to Bobot later on. So thank you for joining us. John, thank you for helping us set this up. We've brought to you today in partnership between Robot Day, IET and the Quad in Derby. Say hello, John.
Hi, Stephen. It's good to be here.
Good. And what are we doing today, John?
Well, we're going to be doing something very different to what we usually do for Robot Day, which is normally a hosted event at Quad where there's lots of things to do all around the building. I am missing our inflatable robot arm today. I must admit, Stephen, that's always a good bit of fun. But we're going to be doing a stream today instead. We just, obviously, with the current climate, we wanted to make sure that precautions were in place and to offer something different for Robot Day this year because things have been a bit uncertain. So in a moment, I'm going to be talking about digital art in immersive spaces. We're going to check in with Stuart Moore from Firm & Wiz Art Gallery on his activities, which are online activities that he's running today, which are internet robots and software robots. So we'll check in with Stuart throughout the morning. I'm going to be unveiling the Citizens of Robot World exhibition, and I'll talk more about that when we come to it, but it's been part of activities at Quad over the summer with families, adults and children to create an exhibition, a digital exhibition that you can walk around online, and I'll share the link to that as well. We've also been running a Roblox competition on the theme of engineering a better world, and we've had some fantastic entries, and we've got a first and second prize for that today. And then to finish off with, we'll have a bit of a chat with our guests and with some special robots. So yeah, thank you very much everyone for joining us this morning. I do know from booking we've got a few people from around the world as well, so thank you for joining us whatever time zone you are in. So I'm going to hand back to you then, Stephen.
Thank you. Excellent. Hopefully you can see my screen with the program on it. Just checking that that's coming through okay. Is that there, John? Mm-hmm. Excellent. Yes, indeed. I mean, this is the wonderful thing about going online, is that we can reach the whole world, and not just the people who are within traveling distance of Derby. We even had an entry for our competition all the way from Indonesia. So big shout out to you if that's you. Right. Well, we may as well get started with the fun. So are you there, Stuart? Stuart Moore, are you there? Maybe Stuart's there and he's on mute.
Yeah.
Hello, Stuart. Are you there?
Oh, yeah. How goes?
Excellent. And are we able to see you? Have you got the?
Sure. If you can stand the pain, here I come.
Hey, Stuart. Excellent. Hello. Good to see you. So we're in Derbyshire. You are where today, Stuart?
I'm in Milton Keynes, but also sort of diffusely across the internet in various ways.
Excellent. A true global presence. Excellent. And what are you doing with us today, John? Stuart?
Well, I've got a couple of things. So on the one hand, I've got a robot that will do a creative collaboration with you. That's what you're seeing there is a swarming kind of robot. That's a software robot. We've got two kinds of swarming robot. That sorts like ants, and another like birds or fish. And let me see. Amongst the chaos down here, you've got some physical robots. That's at all comprehensible. Via the internet, you can create some drawings in collaboration with a machine. It'll physically reproduce them right here in my living room, and I'll scan them back to you.
That's fantastic. And so we've got a website where everybody can join in, and you're seeing a visual of that at the moment on your screen. I'm just going to put the link into the chat for everybody to follow if they want to get involved themselves. So I've been having a little play with this morning, and there's a few. If we just go to the original landing page here, this is what people will see when they arrive at your website. So as you say, there's 3 things to get involved in. I believe you've got some people booked on as well. Some lucky people are going to get a personal guided tour, and you'll be showing us some of the fantastic results from the robotic art that people are participating in later on today.
Absolutely, yeah.
So there's 3 different activities here. So this is the Sketchbot tester. So the lucky people who've managed to book a slot will be drawing much better pictures than this, and then you'll live in. This will be physically recreated in your living room, if I've understood that correctly. And here we can see the type of sketch that your robot is able to produce.
Yep. I think one of the interesting things about a process like this is actually in the errors and all the complexity that comes through your interpretation, the machine's interpretation, it going from digital to analog. It's all the mistakes we're going to be interested in that bit.
And I think there's, from an artistic perspective, there's some interesting questions. John was discussing some of these on the radio last night when he spoke to Radio Derby. Can a robot really make art? Is this art itself questioning what art really is?
I do think there's some interesting questions. I think there's some interesting questions in how we perceive machines in general, certainly AI. I think one of the things that is maybe our intuition hasn't really caught up with yet is that a lot of the time when we perceive the humanity in something like AI, we're just seeing ourselves. AI is a mirror, and it's ourselves we see reflected back.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting point. So you can see my co-host here, Bobot, my nephew made Bobot. We didn't manage to get Bobot to Derby to be scanned into the virtual gallery, so he's making a special appearance as co-host today. And I think that's interesting. When I spoke to my nephew, I said, what does your robot do? What's its purpose? And he said it's to help other people. So there Ethan's already thinking of his robot as a person. Ethan's idea for this robot was that it could be used by young people as a companion and could help them answer the questions, and as they grow up it would grow up with them and maybe even help them with their homework one day.
I like that idea of the robot growing up with you. I think that's amazing.
Yeah. So well, there we go. We've had a look at swarming robots. Let's have a look at some of the other things that people can join in as we're talking. And what we'd like you to do is, if you're joining in, join us on the Zoom chat as well and tell us how you're getting on. If you're struggling with any of it, then I'll be monitoring the chat and we'll help you as best I can. So let's have a look at the flocking robots. What are we seeing here?
These have got a similar kind of behavior to, say, fish or birds. It's a type of emergent behavior where they follow some simple rules and they interact with each other, and much more sort of complex behavior comes out of that. One of the things you can see here is, because these have also got a building behavior, the way, like, say, termites might make a mound, by making their flocking behavior more and less efficient controls, can see how that really impacts on the complex things they can do, like find resources and turn them into something. The way they're not random can massively speed up the way they can do things like build.
Yeah, so what I found particularly fun here was waggling the red dot around, which is the predator. And what I'm enjoying doing is seeing how long I can keep the fish away before they manage to build a structure in my kingdom. So what are these little sliders on the right for then? What can we do with these?
You can.
Oh, it's the left. Sorry. Yeah.
You can increase or decrease the number of robots, and things like how fast they can go, how tightly they can turn. There's a few sort of obstacles in there. And the availability of resources, stuff like that. So potentially, you can see that a large number of robots, I mean, if we're talking like, say, 200, what you're saying about like trying to keep them away from the activity they want to do can become completely unmanageable.
Well, it's got a lot easier now. I've changed that slider to have fewer robots.
Yes, indeed.
So maybe we could have a little competition. How many robots can you keep? What number of robots is the biggest number that our audience can keep away from building a structure? There we go. A little challenge.
That'd be interesting. My money's on the robots in the end.
Yeah, and these little blue dots, that's the food, is it? Is that right?
That's the food, yeah.
Right.
So to build the structure, they've got to pick up a dot of food and bring it back to the structure to a sort of viable location, somewhere where it's possible to build. And they'll...
Okay, yeah. So as evil predator, I'm definitely going to want to reduce the number of resources. That's going to make my job a lot easier, isn't it? I'm intrigued to know what the audience today will do with this. Give us an idea of what your favourite settings are for that, and that'll be a fun discussion. So let's quickly move on to the other activity that's in there. So we've got the trail robots. Now I find this mesmerizing. I got really engaged in staring at this. I did try this in another browser first, which was an Opera browser, and I found that was a bit difficult. So have you got a recommended browser that people might find for this?
Chrome will probably work best. But because this one's really rather heavyweight, there might be literally 4 million robots, depending on your settings on there. It runs on your graphics card rather than the processor. So that's a little bit technically demanding. There's some chance it won't work for everyone, but I'm hoping the vast majority of people will be all right.
So it is glitching a little bit, but that's because I've got an enormous million high number here. So there's a bit of fun maths for people there. So 2 to the power n. So if you get your calculators out, you can work out how many robots you got. That's 2 times 2 times 2, 16 times.
That's a lot.
So I'm going to reduce that a little bit here for my demo. And then we can see what's going on. Right. So now we've just got 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 robots. So
you can make them a bit bigger to make them visible as well.
Right, now how do I do that? Where would I find? Oh, point size, is that the right one?
Point size. Mm-hmm.
Okay, right. So we can see them starting to make a nice pattern now. It's a bit like fireworks night, isn't it? Very good, excellent. And so this is a little bit complicated. Have you got any recommended settings that people should play with first?
I would say just get in there, actually, to be honest. I think one of the things that people make a mistake with occasionally is being cautious. Try stuff out. If it all goes wrong, reload your browser.
Okay, so that would be clicking in Chrome, that would be clicking this little squirrely symbol here. Mm-hmm. Very good. Okay, well, that is fascinating. And we're going to be coming back to you just after 12 o'clock. To find out what's going on. We're going to let you go and meet the lucky artists who are going to be joining you and your robot in the home to create some real tangible artworks. So thank you for joining us, Stuart. We'll come back to you later on.
Okay, see you later. Bye.
Bye. So that was Stuart Moore joining us all the way from Milton Keynes. And if you're booked on, then please do make sure you join that book session, because obviously we had a high demand for that. So please make sure you join them. John is going to be talking to us next. And John, I'm sure you won't mind if people have got a book session and leave your talk for 10 minutes to create some art.
Not at all. I'm quite easygoing.
Okay,
I'm going to be talking about digital art, so why not make some at the same time?
Absolutely, yeah. And if you've got any digital art that you've created and you want to share it with us, put a link into the Zoom chat, and then we can all have a look, and maybe we'll be able to share some of the best examples later on in Robot Day. So do get involved. This is not just about me and John talking, although it will be for about the next 45 minutes. Phoebe, if you're still listening, we've got a Q&A. Could you enable live captions, please, so that we've got some people who need those to help with accessibility. Thank you, Phoebe. Okay, so without further ado, let's move to our first part of the programme. So we're going to be talking about digital art in immersive spaces, and this is brought to you by the Institution of Engineering and Technology, East Midlands. And a big shout out to Una, who sadly couldn't join us today, but she's been really engaged in preparing for Robot Day, and there's a series of these talks that we've been doing over the last few weeks that are available on the IET's Midlands YouTube channel. And we'll come back to you after John's talk with the details of how you can find more in the archive. So if you're interacting with the webinar, we've got some different controls. We would like you to mute if you're not speaking. That's mainly for the presenters. So we've got the text chat where we'd like to hear we'd like to hear from you as John's speaking, what you think about what John's saying, how that touches your life and how you feel that you could get involved, those kind of things. And we've also got Q&A. So if you've got a specific question, please could you put that in the Q&A, and that'll make it easier for us to find. And then I'll be putting questions to John at the end of the talk. Okay, so John is our speaker today, as well as being my co-host and all-round general great guy. He's an artist. He's the digital participation curator at Quad in Derby in the UK. He's a creative digital producer and a consultant with a background in performance, puppetry, animation, and 3D design. So he's a very busy guy. We're lucky to have you today. Thank you, John. He's got a BA degree in performing and media art and took additional modules in computer games modeling and animation. And then he wasn't satisfied with that and took a postgraduate certificate in visual communication. Currently, he's digital participation curator at Quad, and he's responsible for the development and delivery of the participatory program, part of which is what you're taking part in today, and creatively engaging with people with the arts and contemporary culture through digital media. He's also a digital champion for Artworks Alliance, an area rep for Engage Visual Arts, and the digital lead for East Midlands Participatory Arts Forum. So thank you very much for joining us today. Over to you, John. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Stephen. I think you've taken out a couple of my first slides there, so I can skip forward a bit, but I'll try not to. Let me just get my screen up here. So,
well, what I didn't do there, John, was tell anybody what all of that means. So
I'll try and elaborate on that then, Stephen. Thank you. So hopefully everyone, you should see my title screen on there. I think we might be going to Stuart through this talk, Stephen. If we are, just give me a nod so I don't just waffle on. We're not. Okay, that's great. So thank you very much, everyone, for joining today. For those both joining us for the purpose of Robot Day and members of the IET for joining us for this talk. Again, my name is John Whall. I'm the Digital Participation Curator at Quad in Derby, and I will be talking to you today about digital art in immersive spaces. And I'll try and kind of explain how that links to Robot Day in a moment, sorry, as we go. But this is something, again, as part of the lecture series that Stephen mentioned, to offer something slightly different. And we're always keen with Robot Day to explore the creative applications of robots and technology. And that's what I do a lot within my job at Quad. So as Stephen's kind of already explained already in his introduction. Thank you again, Stephen. I'm a digital participation artist, curator, and producer. I use digital tools and materials to create creatively engage audiences with arts and culture, or contemporary culture, sorry, through digital media. I'm an experienced performer and visual practitioner, and my work explores participation through collaborative and co-creative practices with a focus on processes of creating together. As Stephen already mentioned, I'm currently supported by Arts Council through the Developing Your Own Creative Practice, where I'm exploring participant-led co-creation in immersive spaces, which is quite fitting to the talk today. And I also provide specialist sector support through digital skills, knowledge and experience, with the goal to help participatory learning and socially engaged organisations and artists to realise their digital ambitions. And Stephen's mentioned a couple of the other things that I'm involved in as well, so I won't kind of repeat myself too much. So I work at Quad, and this is where we host Robot Day in Derby. We have done for the last, I'd say 2 years, but we've had a bit of a gap for obvious reasons. And normally Robot Day involves anywhere between 1,000 and 1,500 people, and it takes over the entire building. And the last robot day, we actually, you can just see in the bottom left there, had things outside the building taking over Marketplace in Derby as well. So Quad is an international centre for engagement in contemporary art and film. It focuses on major exhibitions, professional practice for artists, independent film, and the creative use of emergent digital technologies. We have an all year round programme that focuses on major exhibitions, professional practice for artists, mass participation, commissions, independent film, and again, emergent digital technologies. So Quad is a charity that focuses on intercultural dialogue through supporting diverse audiences to engage, develop skills, and contribute to contemporary culture. And our learning, education, and participation programs involves people and communities locally and worldwide in innovative arts programs. So to digital art in immersive spaces, today we're going to be looking at a number of different factors, and I'll try and kind of explore a variety of things within that. So we're going to be looking at what is immersive technology, examples of different uses of immersive spaces within the digital art and contemporary art field. I'm just trying to move around my my Zoom screen just because it's just getting in the way a little bit. There we go. How digital art and immersive spaces are responding to the new normal, participation and audience engagement, and some of the tools, skills, and software that's being used to create these spaces and create these experiences. So I'm just going to start with a bit of an explanation over what is an immersive environment. And this comes from Michelle Louis and her paper on immersive environments. Michelle is an academic at the Ontario Institute of Studies in Education at the University of Toronto in Canada. And so Michelle explains here that immersive environments are digitally mediated learning environments designed to engage users in an artificially created make-believe world. Immersive environments may take on board a range of forms, with affordances for varying degrees of sensory immersion and awareness of the user's physical self or the presence of others. Types of immersive environments extend from massive multiplayer online role-playing games, MMORPGs, as they're known. World of Warcraft is a great example of that, and multi-user online virtual worlds, so things like Second Life, all the way through to surround screen projection-based virtual reality environments, and they're referred to as cave systems, and those are things that have existed in art and curatorial practice for a number of years now. And just to note that this actually comes from a paper that Michelle published in 2015, so it's quite a while ago, and the technology, as I'll explain throughout the talk, has jumped leaps and bounds since. And I just want to kind of ground us in what some of these things mean, especially for those who don't understand what immersive environment is and the technology behind it. And that moves us on to the definitions of what has become really XR, or I can't remember what the X stands for now, but it's a cross between all these different realities. So we have mixed reality, virtual reality, augmented reality, and I think this gives us a good kind of idea of what those different things mean. So VR, virtual reality, is a fully artificial environment, and even though the picture there depicts it with a headset on, games, for example, with fully immersive environments, you can see them through a screen as well as through a headset. So there's kind of variations within virtual reality as well. There's augmented reality, which is where digital objects are overlaid in the real world environment, and there to kind of enhance those the digital objects as well, and mixed reality, a combination of the two. So something you move in the real world can affect the virtual world and vice versa. Now, there is a spectrum, a scale when it comes to these realities, and it can get quite complicated. For example, you can have virtual augmented reality and augmented virtual reality, and depending on where you are on the scale would depend on the level of complexity and immersion and the different tools and techniques used. So to start, and some of the engineers watching might recognize this device. This is called the Sword of Damocles. It was the first VR head-mounted display, and it was created in 1968 by the computer scientist Ivan Sutherland. with the help of his students, Bob Sproul, Quinton Foster, and Danny Cohen. And it's named after the moral fable, parable, which involves Dionysus II, which talks about the allusion to the imminent and ever-present peril faced by those in positions of power. So with all his riches and wealth and servants, he'd placed above his throne a sword pointing downwards held by a single hair from a horse's tail to evoke the sense of what it's like to be a king, that there's an ever-present threat. And so the sword of Damocles unit that you see here was named on the idea of those kind of sword pointing downwards, but actually it's also the name of the mechanical tracking system and not the head-mounted display. So it's this kind of image on the left that we're looking at, that's where its name is, not the kind of head-mounted display there on the right. And it's widely considered to be the first augmented reality head-mounted display system. So it was fairly primitive, both in terms of user interface and realism. Its graphics comprised a virtual environment where were simple wireframe rooms. Sunderland's system displayed output from a computer program in a stereoscopic display. And the perspective that the software showed the user would depend on the position of the user's gaze, which is why head tracking was necessary. So they were physically bound in this headset, and as they moved physically around the space, the device moved with them, and that's what gave them the visuals that they were seeing. So I want to start with, in terms of art and design and arts and culture, around curating the virtually curated. And I'll try and explain that as I go, but it's looking at how curators in the art world is trying to curate and provide experiences based on these new technologies. And I'll start with this lovely an original Oculus headset. And this is part of the Rapid Response Collecting exhibition at the V&A. And this exhibition was introduced in 2014, which is quite fitting with Oculus because that was around the time of Facebook acquiring them. And as a new type of collecting activity, at the V&A. And contemporary objects acquired in response to major moments in history, recent history, that touched the world of design and manufacturing. And many of the objects have been newsworthy, either because they advance what design can do or because they reveal truths about how we live. And in very true to form fashion with the V&A, it's about form and design rather than function. And to me, the function of the Oculus headset is what was most exciting. It allowed us to kind of delve into these virtual worlds, and was very timely because it was around the time when computer technology and software and game engines really kind of were taking ground. And so the headset, where previous headsets, because we had VR headsets in the 80s and 90s, but around the time, around 2014, in fact, 2012, 2014, where these headsets were kind of being created, we had the computer technology and the software to be able to kind of really utilize them. And it's taken us into this kind of meta world that we're now kind of using the terminology of meta, and which also, again, quite fitting with Facebook's acquisition. And their new change, if anyone's not seen, Facebook will be changing their name to Meta because they're very interested in the metaverse. And so I'm just going to explain that a little bit and what the metaverse is. So the metaverse is the hypothesized next iteration of the internet. That is supporting decentralized and persistent online 3D virtual environments. And this virtual space will be accessible through virtual reality headsets, augmented reality glasses, smartphones, PCs, and game consoles. So these are all things where the internet itself will become more immersive and also will have more and more kind of accessibility to digital art. And so this next iteration replaces what effectively was kind of Web 2.0, which appeared in the late 90s and began the era of the social internet, where there was an ease of use that emerged, and the user-generated content and participatory culture of the internet, which saw the rise of social media. Again, going back to Facebook, I don't want to kind of go on too much about Facebook, but this is where kind of it all kind of this metaverse, this whole thing with Facebook and the internet and moving towards this more immersive internet is kind of going. And it kind of leads on nicely to what it means for curating digital art for immersive spaces. So this is an exhibition by Megan Broadmeadow, at Fact in Liverpool in 2019. And it's called Why Can't We Do This in Real Life, IRL? And what you can see here, obviously, is not a virtual exhibition, but you can just see the lady there's got a VR headset on, or she might be just taking it off, and there's some headsets around. And this work, was in response to a YouTube video where a content creator was testing the mechanics of a famous Western-themed computer game. And all they were doing was kind of testing to see what they could do in the game. It's a sandbox game, an open world game where the game itself has quite complicated mechanisms and mechanics that allow you to do things and invite you to do things. It's kind of almost role playing in the sense that it wants you to be the character that you're them, but be them however you want them to be. And so what this YouTuber was doing in this video that caused a lot of controversy, I think it was also taken down, but then being able to be re-uploaded, it was a video to see how many ways he could kill a suffragette, a character in the game, a non-playable character. And there are a number of ways they did this, like taking her to a train track, feeding her to an alligator, which also features in the work. But this work was in response to that, and what that meant for the character and their standing in the game, and what this meant in real life, and why can you do this in a computer game, or why should you be able to do this in a computer game? So actually, even though this was commissioned as a high-end piece of gallery curated artwork, is actually a fantastic one of the best examples that I've found of digital participation and community outreach work, because Megan worked with older adults, that was part of an older people's group at Fact in Liverpool that was looking at the role of technology and art in society, as well as outreach with young people in the community that were seen as hard to reach, and they worked with youth centres and with youth workers, and so the work itself is inside the headset is a 360 film effectively, but it goes through this journey of exploring what this character, the suffragette, went through and why, and it even kind of dehumanizes that character throughout the film, taking her from a female humanoid voice all the way through to a digitized voice. And there's even a really lovely court scene with the young people kind of judging the situation. And there's also music involved where young people were kind of co-created the music as well. It's a fantastic piece of art and experience. And if you ever get the chance to see this, if it ever shows anywhere, I do recommend it. It's a really great piece of work. So I'm just moving on, I'm just trying to go through a few examples of where digital art has been curated and how we kind of show it. The top left image, apologies, I've missed off the kind of reference of that. That's actually from an exhibition at Quad called VO2, which was one of the really early exhibitions where Quad was exploring immersive technologies through the idea of VR and 3D. So we've got immersive screen system. There was VR, there's the 3D glasses that you can see there. But that really sparked off an interest in this area of work. And so our first digital fellows were Gibson and Martelli in 2014, and they produced the exhibition 80 Degrees North. And this exhibition was inspired by the spirit of discovery and celebrating the pioneers who break new ground through science and technologies. And the piece in the top right, I think it is called Search of Abandon. It responds to a marker on the Google Maps for Spitsberg, which is labeled abandoned. So the artist sought to discover this location both physically during a residency and also through a computer-generated virtual experience. And that experience, you're using physical wheel and a pulley system to navigate through a projected wireframe environment. And then in the bottom there, White Island, it draws upon S.A. Andre's doomed polar balloon expedition of 1897. Attempting to reach the pole, Andre's balloon crashed in the ice near White Island. I'm not going to try and pronounce the native word for it. And the the three expedition members perished, and their final campsite was only located in 1930. So consulting textual and photographic documentation left by the original expedition members, Gibson and Martelli built a computer-generated world using height map data and game engine technology. And what they're doing here using virtual reality, and you stood on a platform, so you felt that you were in this balloon, and you were using pulleys as the control systems for the balloon. If you were used to playing computer games, keyboard, mouse, game controllers, this used pulley systems to navigate. But as well as that, there, you can't see it in the pictures there, there were fans blowing at the audience in the device. So you got a real kind of sense of layers of immersion there, so apologies, that kind of added to that experience. And this again is quite a long time ago now, 2014, so this was quite high tech at the time. Another exhibition at Quad was Glitched Search for the Lost MacGuffin, and this is where we kind of go into AR, the idea of digital objects overlaid in the real world spaces. And the immersive stage here was actually based around film sets and film locations and what it's like to be on a set, and that kind of real world, non-real world kind of juxtaposition. And the audience went through these different sets, these different spaces. For those who don't know, MacGuffin is kind of a non-thing in film. It helps drive the plot of the film, but actually has no kind of bearing in terms of the outcome. So it's a bit of a nothing. And the idea is this kind of search for this MacGuffin through these sets, where audiences would use an app, use tablets to find clues that they would try and scan, and then go into these augmented reality worlds to find these pieces of the MacGuffin. And we had a hotel hallway in the gallery space. It went into a factory location, as well as, and even onto a train where we had screens that depicted a moving screen. And the digital artwork here, the augmented reality artwork, sorry, I should say, were developed by Pierce Bishop, Nugent Tai, and Julien Costard from the University Paris 8, as well as our own digital producer, Darius Powell. So we had some great collaboration on that. And then in 2018, we took a really big jump into producing an exhibition that focused on virtual reality. So we exhibited the works of Rebecca Allen, which was part of a retrospective from over 30 years at the time. So obviously it's a bit more now of work, and Zain Zelmeen, which is a new commission, and even included the video Music Non-Stop, which is a 1986 animation that Rebecca Allen made for the Electronic Music Pioneers Kraftwerk. So she really is a female digital pioneer in terms of vision and artwork, and she was in fantastic work even in kind of the 80s in 3D design and animation. So she's someone who certainly should be celebrated. And the exhibition space the exhibition spaces themselves are immersive in terms of that drawing the audiences in, as well as the digital artwork. So while they're not a cave system in terms of the projection, as I mentioned earlier, but the spaces themselves are designed to immerse the audience in layers of artwork, both in digital and physical spaces. And then I'm just going to quickly jump back to Megan, because this was another exhibition following year with Megan Boardmellow, which she even said herself was a complex exhibition, an immersive exhibition for the purpose of a single VR work, which you can see just there on the left. And I can actually kind of walk you through this as I'm talking about it, just to kind of give you it's not just me waffling and showing slides. So we work with V21 Artspace, who use Matterport digital scanning technology to scan our exhibitions. And you can go to their site and not only see fantastic quad exhibitions, but exhibitions from all over the world. And this exhibition is a mixture of performance and installation and design and a really fantastic, I think it was 3-part series that explored a film, as well as performance, as well as an installation that was at the Green Man Festival. And the idea behind this exhibition was, if higher beings, if aliens kind of came down to Earth and you were the chosen person that they communicated with, what would that be like? So there's this fantastic mirror maze, although not big, it felt big and felt complicated when you're in there. I love that idea of a robot, a device seeing itself. how does it recognize itself, and what does it think if we think in those terms. And so this exhibition again was quite complex. This box here was part of the Green Man Festival and depicts that kind of notion of, I think it's called the prayer box, a box that an individual had that they claimed they were able to be communicated through God and answer prayers through. And again, so all this complex, immersive experience, as Megan says, for one VR work, but it's a bit more than that. It's a bit the VR work is just part of this whole experience, and the VR work itself is a 360 film that when you actually meet these aliens and they take you through this kind of crazy story about your purpose in all of this. So it's a really fantastic piece of work, and you can go again onto V21's website to kind of see this work and walk around it yourself. Let's just get back to, there you go. And so I'm going to move on to virtual exhibitions and responding to the new normal. So when we talk about, so far I've talked about immersive work and how we curate those. And now I'm going to talk about virtual exhibitions themselves and the curation that's involved there. And this is one of the first projects that I worked on, that produced on. It was in the same exhibition in Rebecca Allen and Zane Zelmeans. And it came from conversations with V21 Art Space and work that I wanted to look at, which I'm now funded by Arts Council, to explore around participant approaches to virtual spaces. And it was commissioned by Animateen, which was a celebration of British animation, funded by Lottery, BFI, Film Academy Wales chapter. And they approached us and said, have you got any ideas about what we can do that's interesting with animation? And we kind of proposed this idea, and that's where we are with things. So I can actually walk you through this while I talk, just so you can see it there. So this was a virtual exhibition, VR exhibition. You used a headset to move around. It was a HTC Vive, so you use controls to teleport yourself around. But we also, for accessibility reasons, made it accessible by I can't control the sound volume, I'm afraid, so I might just have to shout. If someone says it's too much, then do let me know. So it showed work that looked upon the themes of young at heart, politics and persuasion, connections and breaking boundaries. And it has some fantastic animations in there from artists from the last kind of 20, 30 years, as well as new work through an AniJam, which we held a competition, national competition, to create new animated works, I think over 2 days that these were created. And this is one of my favorite pieces. This is a piece by Light Surgeons, London-based arts organization, who created these animations and the musical score, working with both hearing and deaf participants. So the deaf participants had rumble packs on where they could hear the music that was being created in the space and respond to that music by creating the animations. And what we tried to encapsulate there was that sense of what that must have been like. So in the virtual experience with the controllers, as you approach this work, you get the vibrations of the music coming through the controllers, just to kind of, so we have that kind of augmented kind of depiction there. So I'm just going to come out of here and go back to the presentation. And then in terms of that, with that work, it was actually noted by Arts Council assessor about the inclusion of participant work in these virtual spaces, which was something that I was really pleased about, because it was noted on the report, and it's something that, you know, we know in participation and learning practice that when participants can see and experience their work in gallery spaces, there's a huge sense of achievement. And it gives us a level of accessibility. And that really kind of makes me want to explore that accessibility a bit more. So it's not just accessible to the participants, but also to the artists. This is a work called Living with Spinal Cord Injury by Davey Jose in 2019. This was a physical exhibition that was launched at the National Spinal Injury Centre, and this is the VR version. And now they say it's the VR recording. I'm not sure what they mean by that, because to me it's not a recording, it's a recreation of that exhibition, but it is available through IAM, which is the Infinite Art Museum, which is their special collections that are custom levels that focus on work of one artist, and these collections either showcase a large collection of work or reproduce an installation of a traditional gallery. So this was kind of 2019, pre-pandemic. We were already starting to think about how we show artistic work virtually before the jump on the bandwagon to kind of digitize our collections and digitize these experiences, because people were stuck at home and only able to see this at home. And so Davey, the artist, was 2 years old when he was knocked over by a car and sustained a C1 and C2 spinal cord injury. And he says that art has played a major role in his life, and through his art and through virtual reality, people can explore that process and what that means to him. Moving on, this was just a year or so before. This, if you've not seen it, is Occupy White Walls. It's still going. It's going really, really strong. And it's the first, or I think it might be the only, but it's the first massive multiplayer online gallery builder, I think. And it's fantastic. You can create your own gallery. There's a huge amount of tools, a huge amount of kind of flexibility and design, and there's some really fantastic things that people have made. It's really accessible. You can see how easy and modular it is to build this. So it's game engine kind of skills and technology to kind of create these things. And there's an AI in there called Daisy, which when you start putting in artworks into your museum, Daisy starts recognizing what you're putting in and suggesting work for you. So there's another level of immersion where you've got this AI curator alongside what you're making, and you can open up your gallery, people can come and have a look. And it's now expanded its collection to include commissions and new artworks. I think this originally started through Kickstarter, and then they did a Kickstarter to create an artist program. So basically artists to be able to create work that goes into Daisy. But it's expanding, it's ever grown, and it's still going strong. This is a bit more demanding in terms of technology, so you will need a kind of gaming PC to be able to run it effectively. But it's really fantastic to kind of give people the ability to be creative, as you can see there. And so that was kind of pre-pandemic. So as I said, this idea, this kind of need, this desire to make digital artwork in digital immersive spaces began before everything went into lockdown and the worldwide crisis kind of took place. But then when we hit the pandemic, we started seeing immersive spaces and digital artwork kind of change and be shown in lots and lots and lots of different ways. It's still kind of, I'm still amazed at how many different iterations we're seeing of this kind of idea. And this is an exhibition in Minecraft by Jason DeFreitas, and it was a project. The photographs themselves were from a project documenting nature's recovery following the 2019-2020 Australian bushfires. We forget that was going on as well through a whole pandemic also. And so while discussing how to exhibit the work during the time of the quarantines and lockdowns, his sister suggested you can do a group online exhibition. And so he started looking into that, and he created it in Minecraft. It ran on a Minecraft server, which is no longer active, sadly. I would have loved to walk around this in Minecraft. But he saw the possibility, and the images there are actually created up of Minecraft maps, where you can, if no one's familiar with Minecraft, you can put a map on the wall, but you can go into those areas of the map and put blocks down, and you'll see that on the map on the wall, which is fantastic for creating images. But he used a lot of third-party tools to create these kind of 1024 by 1024 pixel photos, and that allowed him to kind of create this a lot quicker and a lot easier. But it's a fantastic example, and it looks really top end and really great at the same time. It's in Minecraft, so it's quite astounding what he's managed to achieve there. I also really like this exhibition by Stephanie Unger. This again was responding to her work being cancelled due to COVID-19. She's an illustrator, and so she set up an art exhibition in, I forget the game now, Animal Crossing, I think it is, where you can have your own art gallery in there, and she created these. But what I really love about this is the social aspect of it, and that instant feedback you can see on the screen, that people are coming in to see her work in this space, being social and giving that instant kind of feedback to see people's responses. And what's also great, this is handheld. This is on a Nintendo Switch. And this is digital art in a digital world, and that's kind of layered, that meta layer of immersion is really, really wonderful to see. And so at Quad, we run the Format International Photography Festival, and again, we were responding to this idea of the new normal and how we effectively show what would be like a 20-venue cross-city international art festival online. And so we partnered with New Art City, which are an artist collective in, I want to say Florida, in the US. And their kind of toolkit, New Art City, allowed us to create 20 exhibition spaces online, and for those to view virtually. Now, I think at the time the festival closed in March, although you can still go to go and see these spaces online, we had over 60,000 visitors from all over the world visit the exhibitions, which was fantastic. But I want to just quickly kind of jump in there as art as an event, just because going back to Stephanie's exhibition and format, we were able to have this social aspect to Format International Photography Festival. This is our launch party. This was launched in New Art City, in the kind of main landing room. I think at one point there was over 900 people attending, which we would never have been able to do at the physical festival. And this was really kind of a warts and all experience. We'd never done this before. New Art City hadn't done it for this many people, I think, before. And so there were glitches and kind of hiccups, and you'll see in a second, there's a live stream going through this, which goes through all the rooms. So we're giving talks about the exhibition. That was kind of calling people back to this room, which is where this video on the right was playing, of I can't remember the performer's name now. So there was kind of a communication issue there, but also that video, the end of that live stream, like the last 30 seconds, ended up looping itself accidentally. So Adam, Quad CEO there, was calling people back to the room, apologizing for miscommunication, but then kind of repeatedly saying, "Now dance," which ended up kind of awkwardly timing itself with the music that was playing by the DJ. But that just became part of the enjoyment and part of the fun of the event, and kind of drew you into that immersion, which was really fantastic. And so I'm going to move on to finalize my talk here, just looking at kind of tools, skills, and software, just because I know with the audience that we have here with the Institution of Engineering and Technology, that some of you may be kind of seeing through this and seeing how things are made. But I just want to kind of give everyone a kind of idea of some of the things that we use in order to make these spaces possible. So for those of you familiar with 3D modeling, if you're not, SketchUp is a fantastic place to start. It's free, it's online, it gives you a great kind of grounding and starting to explore the 3D space. So if you're not familiar and working with 3D space, SketchUp is a really good place to go. But I also recommend using Blender, which is a really powerful tool. It's free, which I am always astounded by. Its kind of nearest competitor, I suppose, is Maya, which is an industry standard 3D modeling and animation software, and that's really expensive. So as someone starting out as an artist, to fork out for something really expensive might not be the way you want to go. So I'd really recommend Blender as a way to get started. So 3D modeling is kind of where you would start in terms of to make the 3D environments. To go into the 3D environments, you're then looking at kind of moving on to Unity or game engine, sorry. And the top two are Unity and Unreal, and they are comparable to each other. They are, I would say that Unity is more accessible, but Unreal will give you more realism and more kind of sense of detail. You can get some fantastic detail and realism in Unity, but Unreal just takes it beyond a bit. And these technologies are used by engineers, used by architects, used all over the world, not just in the game industry and the film industry. And it's one of those things where those technologies being absorbed into the arts and culture world is really, really exciting. And so part of kind of using these technologies, you might use things like texture mapping, which uses kind of different images to put onto 3D objects, to wrap around the 3D objects to give them more detail or give them a sense of color and image. There are tools now where you can paint directly onto 3D objects, but texture mapping is something that's quite accessible. So you can see there the guide by Janko Stanov, looking at the different layers of texture mapping, the diffuse, which is the image itself that you're putting onto the object, the specular, which tells where the light's going, and all the way through to the normal, which kind of gives it some relief. It kind of changes the direction in which the light bounces off the pixels to kind of give it more detail than it actually has. And the new Unreal Engine takes that way beyond, where you don't need to use those kind of my mind these kind of textures to be able to make that happen. They can just render that many pixels and that many polygons. And an example of that on the right here is actually from the Citizens of Robot World, which will launch in a short while. Where an image there on the left is just mapped onto a 3D object, and that's just to kind of help us place that object in the world. And then other techniques include photogrammetry, which is the scanning, the digital detailing and depth scanning of an object. And at the top there you can see the Lincoln collection and the work by Oliver Larrick. Now Oliver Larrick did this way back in 2012, which the detail of those objects, I've downloaded some of those, they're fantastic scans. And actually that was an open call by the Contemporary Art Society Annual Award that supports UK Museum to work with an artist of their choice to commission a new work that when completed will remain in the museum's permanent collection. And Larrick's proposal was to 3D scan the objects, but to publish all the data for free. And that was what was chosen as the winning project. And so the project aimed at making the collection available to an audience outside the geographic proximity, and to treat the objects as starting points for new works. And I've taken this into other things and played about with them. It's really great to be able to do. And again, this is 2012. The images at the bottom there are 2015 from the British Museum, who kind of took on this idea of scanning their collections to kind of make it more accessible to different audiences. And so we're now using this in participatory practice and working with children and young people. I do apologize for the slightly graphic nature of this work, but this is a young person's response to a project they were working on. There is a zombie there on the left and someone making sure that zombie stays dead. But you can see just so the ITZY's 3D and structure camera sensor on the left there, the technique and using it, that's using an iPad and an additional camera, and the depth and detail that we get with the scan on the right. And so we're able to do that in a workshop setting now with young people and manipulate and adjust that image and use it in game engines and then create VR from it. And it's a fantastic process to be a part of. And I'm just going to kind of finish on something that I'm really excited about. This is Tilt Brush, which actually no longer exists, but it does in a way because Google made it open source. So we now have a multiplayer version of that. And it's fantastic because it makes creating digital art really accessible. You don't need to be able to use a keyboard and mouse or controller. You can just use VR controllers. You're in VR doing this as well. My 4-year-old daughter loves playing with Tiltbrush. It really is an accessible tool, and it really adds to that ability to kind of engage participants to create new work quickly, because you're not trying to teach them new skills in 3D modeling and how to use Photoshop and how to use After Effects. It's literally giving them controllers, asking them to pull a trigger and draw. And so that's a really fantastic, I find this really fantastic tool. And on the right here, this is a performance that the Tiltbrush artist Rosie Summers did live as part of the Format International Photography Festival this year. So we did an online immersive live performance with Rosie, and I do urge you to check her work out because she's done some fantastic work. But she's mixing the reality there by kind of having herself inside the virtual space as she's making and creating the artwork. And things like Tiltbrush have kind of paved the rise of NFTs. And if you're not familiar with NFTs, they're kind of the new way of creating and collecting art, digital art. And so NFT stands for non-fungible token, and something that's fungible is it has an equal, so you can trade it like for like. But with NFTs, for example, trading cards, one-of-a-kind trading cards, for example, is non-fungible, because if you trade it, you have to trade it with something else or another card with that's different, so that becomes non-fungible. And so this is an interesting time, and there was a lot of hype around NFTs and where that could go, but it's interesting to know that kind of now digital artwork can be collected and shown in immersive spaces where it hasn't really been before. So there's been a lot of leaps and bounds over the last kind of, I would say, 12 to 18 months, and it possibly is down to the pandemic, but also possibly to the kind of where we are with the technology. So that's all from me. I'd just like to say thank you very much for taking the time to listen to my presentation there. I'm not sure what time we're on, but if we have time for questions and anyone would like to ask any questions, then I'm happy to do so.
Well, you are absolutely bang on time to the minute there, John. So we've got the full 15 minutes for questions. So I would really encourage everybody who's on the chat to use the Q&A function to put your questions. You know, this is a great opportunity to explore the intersection of art and robotics and engineering. And I know that it's something that's fascinated me as an engineer, and I think it's a really important part of life that we need to understand, not only the technology and the engineering, but also the emotion behind it, the human effects. You know, as engineers, we need to understand the impact of our technologies, and if we're just throwing them out there without understanding how they impact on people, then we're not doing our job properly. And arts is how we do that. You know, whether it's TV or video games or pictures on a virtual wall, yeah, that's how we as humans understand the world around us, I think. You got any further thoughts on that, John?
It's interesting, isn't it? Because we've had an exhibition, I should have shown that as well, that was a robot exhibition, and it kind of part involved the way robots can create art, and partly involved robots as art. But I do think when it comes to robotics and engineering, the technologies and the ways of working are what really excites the art world. You know, HoloLens, for example, is I've not seen it in real world engineering kind of environments, but the idea that you can use HoloLens to be in an engineering environment and see through things and see how things work, to be able to bring up specs to kind of fix or create something or put something together, that is really exciting to cross over into the art and design world, and being able to give audiences layers of immersive immersion in the work. That's something that's really exciting.
Yeah, I think that's really important for us as engineers. You know, some engineers might be skeptical about, you know, is this really something that's important to us? You know, video games, are they trivial? But no, those engines that you mentioned, Unreal Engine and similar technologies, are now being leveraged for some very serious applications. Yeah, and they're helping train people for hazardous environments. So you know, people working on nuclear power stations, for example, might learn their trade in a virtual environment. Yeah, and without the impetus that the arts in video games gave to develop that technology, we wouldn't have that for those very important human serious applications.
Exactly. And I think when it comes to training as well, because we're humans, we're physical, we move, kind of we explore that in art and design through visual and performance art. But there was a study done recently where I can't remember what the participants were being trained on, but the trainees took part in the training in virtual reality where they were able to physically action something, and they found that they were able to absorb the information as part of their training better than if they were sat in a classroom just watching a PowerPoint or talking through things. Although there is benefits to that. You know, everyone has different levels of how they like to learn, whether they're visual, audio, or kind of kinesthetic. So there's huge amounts of crossover, and I do think that art and science and engineering kind of all mingle into one kind of is looking at the technicalities of things, where one is kind of providing the inspiration and the creative processes that kind of spark off those ideas.
Absolutely, and that skills idea is super important. So I'm really pleased you've brought that to the front today. Yeah, so you mentioned a few tools there, Blender and SketchUp, freely available for people to have a play around. So yeah, how can people get started with that? Are there tutorials on YouTube, for example? Yeah, what's the best way to get into that?
Absolutely. So I think all of them have their own kind of series of free tutorials. Blender certainly does. Unity has a whole kind of learning program, which it takes you through the basics, but actually when you go through it, you've learned quite a lot. YouTube is always my go-to, because you're learning from people who use the software, so you always find different ways to do possibly the same thing. So I always find YouTube quite useful in that sense, but also it's just kind of sometimes it's about trying it out and seeing what you can do. And I've certainly run workshops as introductions to Blender. You'll learn or you'll see when we unveil Robot World, you'll see some of the robots that some young people made as part of the Blender workshop, and they kind of went from knowing nothing to creating something that's in this exhibition that we'll launch shortly. So they are quite accessible, and the tutorials and tools are out there to kind of learn from.
Fantastic. Now we've had a question from the audience. This is from John to John. John is in Margate, where he's part of the Geekery, which is where the digital artists known as Genetic Moo are based. Have you come across them?
I know Genetic Moo. They exhibited at the robot exhibition at Quad. They actually had, going back to Stuart's work, it was an AI swarm of robots that were kind of existing in this virtual environment. I'm a big fan of Genetic Moo's work. Their crossover between science and art is fantastic. So John, it's great to hear from you. Yeah, absolutely, I'd love to do something. Do get in touch. So
yeah, I think you're on Twitter. That's one way that they could get in touch with you. Are you okay to put your email in the chat for people who want to get in touch with you after the call?
Yeah, I'll put that through.
Okay, very good. Yes, so they have a monthly meeting on Zoom from 7 p.m. on the fourth Thursday of the month. So anybody, I'm hoping John from Margate that Zoom is available to other people, and hopefully that's a way that people who've joined us today and want to find out more and meet more digital artists can get involved going forwards. We'd love to hear from you and stay in touch. Thank you. So. The other thing I was wondering about skills, yeah. So you mentioned Minecraft, yeah. I think of Minecraft as a game mainly. So it was really interesting to see that you can use it for other things like creating art galleries. Yeah. So how does that work? And is that maybe like a bridge that young people or even older people who've been involved in Minecraft who think, man, that 3D modeling sounds really hard. Is that, if you can do Minecraft, does that give you a leg up?
I think if you're really new to working in 3D environments, Minecraft is a good kind of way to start. And I'm sure everybody here has a child in their house that's got Minecraft on some sort of device. But we have a Minecraft program at Quad, and we started that as a response, as kind of a visual arts response to code clubs, just because there were a lot of code clubs happening at the time, and we wanted to do something similar, but also make it about digital and visual art. And so we actually had a young person as part of our Minecraft clubs at Quad, who turned around in a session and says, I'm no good at art, but then created these fantastic structures and what I would say works of art in Minecraft. So Minecraft is a really good place to be. If you can get it in VR through HTC Vive, there's a Vive version, or through Windows 10, I would give it a go, because that's good fun as well.
Absolutely, and art is very subjective, and if somebody has told you that you're no good at art, then don't believe them. If it's art to you, then it's art. Is that right?
Absolutely, and it sounds cliche to say, but it is down to the kind of tools that you're using and the methods that you're using. That, you know, art is quite expansive in terms of the materials and tools that you can use, and digital art especially so. So a lot of the time it's just finding the right method for you, and you know when artists have found that right method because they can take it to another level. It kind of goes so that nobody can sing. It's just about finding the right song. It's something that anyone can do.
Absolutely. I got put off art at school. You know, I really loved it, and I got good grades for my first 3 years. And then we got first 2 years, and I got a new art teacher, and he suddenly gave me an E. And I hadn't changed what I was doing. You know, it was just that particular person's perception of what I thought was my art. And I've rediscovered art through my gardening. You know, I've been creating a garden and sculpting that and creating sculptural pieces in my garden. Yeah, so it's there. And if you think you can't do art, then you probably really can. It's just about finding the way that works for you. And facilities at Quad in Derby and similar places around the UK and I imagine around the world are available. Yeah, so do look for your local artistic venue that's offering courses. Often they're partly funded. Doesn't have to be expensive, right, John?
A lot of the time we try and keep sessions free, and if they are charged for, it's just normally to cover the costs of the facilitator. And I've got to say that a lot of the work that we do around coding and around kind of robotics and engineering involves art first, just to kind of get people interested, kind of thinking creatively and looking at things from creative perspective. So if anyone's interested in learning those things, then absolutely come along.
Yeah, and of course you've been very good at acknowledging our engineering audience today, and I was wondering, you know, for people who do have those 3D skills, you know, maybe we've got some people who spend their lives creating computer-aided designs for engineering. You know, what if they're interested in getting in art? You know, what's a good way to get started with for them? You know, to take those skills and transfer them.
I would certainly say a good place to start would be to learn a creative package. So I know someone who's an engineer who uses CAD-based software, and he mocks me for my use of Blender and using things in creative packages. They do the same thing, they're just kind of done in a very different way. But to be able to translate those modeling skills and those precision skills and move them over to something like Blender, where you're then kind of creating the same thing, but potentially in a more creative way, then that's somewhere that I would certainly start. And if you are, also, if you are kind of worried about kind of, well, I don't know if I can be creative or think creatively, then, you know, it could be start as simple as going to a life drawing class, or join a kind of an art club, or drop into a craft session. You know, even with your kids or with your family, that could be a really good place to just start and then take things from there.
And yeah, so on the subject of making, we've got some fantastic facilities in Derby, where we're coming from today, at the Museum of Making, award-winning refurbishment at the Museum of Making. Anybody can go down there and use some really exciting equipment to make some really exciting things. Have you been to the museum, John?
I've not been fortunate enough to go yet. Quad is just a stone's throw away from the Museum of Bacon. I feel really guilty that I've not managed to go, but I have been working from home most of the time.
Yeah. Well, big friends of mine, and we also have a maker space at the University of Derby, and the maker movement's really big. And so if doing things digitally or with paints is not your thing, and you prefer to make things like Bobot, then certainly in the UK, we've got a lot of facilities for doing that. So do look up your local makerspace, and that's a global movement. So wherever you are, you should be able to find that. And you don't have to use expensive materials. You can use found materials. That's really important to me, because I don't want my art, my garden, my creations to impact on the environment or the world. And of course, digital art is a great way to avoid that resource impact.
Yeah.
So we're at the end of our scheduled session for the IET talk. So a very big thanks to everybody who's attended, but Robot Day is not finished. We're here for another 45 minutes. So I'd strongly encourage everybody to hang on. We've got some great stuff coming up. The first thing that we're going to do is unveil our very own robot art gallery. So back to you, John.
We are, and just so everyone knows, this is web-based, and I'll share a link to this art gallery once I've just unveiled it here. But because it's web-based, if my screen starts going a bit slow, just someone shout up, because I've kept it as low in terms of the demands on bandwidth as possible, but that may still happen. So I'm just going to share my screen again. So this is our Citizens our Citizens of Robot World exhibition, and so this was our collaboration with IET for Robot Day. It consists of robots that were made physically and scanned, 3D modeled. There's some animation, and there's even origami robots in there as well. So I'll walk you through quickly. I'm just going to drop the volume down first. There is some sound in the space, not a huge amount, but I don't want that to overpower what I'm going to talk about. So at the press of a button, welcome to Citizens of Robot World. And there is some kind of, for the robots out there, some binary text in there, and if you kind of hover over, you'll see what that translates to. So we have Citizens of Robot World and binary for welcome. And so we enter this first room, just to say as well, this is the same system we used for the Format International Photography Festival with New Art City. So do check them out, because it's a fantastic way to kind of create these exhibition spaces. And we start off with some robots from Q Club, which is Quad's SEND group that's funded by Children in Need. It primarily works with those with autism and additional support needs. And they worked with artist Paul Davis to kind of create these trash robots. And what we did here was we photogrammetry scanned the robots to be able to get them into these exhibitions. Using Blender actually to kind of downscale the number of polys, the number of size they have, so it's not too demanding on the system. And what came out quite nicely with that is the idea that kind of these are sculptures, robot created sculptures, and if you think about it, robots would use this technology to see the world around them and to kind of interpret that and create their own artwork. Just hovering off there, we'll catch it. It will come back in a second. Is Blowed. Blowed was made by a PhD researcher, Gemma Hewitt. I'm just trying to catch it so I can see the name of the bottom right. And Gemma is actually an arts research PhD student from the University of Loughborough, and she made this as a kind of response looking at the gentrification of robots, as well as kind of the issues around race. And why most robots are kind of white, and what that means, and kind of that clean aesthetic. So she created this robot as a kind of eco robot, one that comes around and cleans things up. So I try to kind of give it a sense of kind of coming in and cleaning around the gallery. And we also have these 3D robots that we created in Blender with some young people, and they went from absolutely no skills in 3D modeling to the skills in modeling. I can see some people popping in with me here. I don't know who that is. But in the bottom left, there's a chat. So do say, if you are part of this event, do say who you are. And there's also a guest book as well, which allows us to capture people's thoughts. So if you do have a wander through this, please let us know your thoughts. And I'm going to take you through to the next room. And so what we actually have here is 3 different rooms to kind of keep the data load low. To transition quite quickly and also to allow things to load. So a continuation on some of our 3D scanned objects. These were from Family Workshop from our Make and Take program, which is a craft-based project where people come and make whatever they want with the idea that they take them away. And so these were family-orientated workshops. So children, parents all made these robots. We've got a mixture of things that were photographed as well as scanned. There's a great one here. This is a running robot, so this is why it's on grass here. We weren't able to scan the grass. Not everything scans very well with photogrammetry, so there's some complications with that. But we had this lovely submission from a young person that sent this in by email. This is a British tea robot by Thomas from Leek, and it's the idea that the tea is always being delivered. The robot's always there to pour you some tea, which is lovely. I should have put some cups in. I might update this with some cups, and then we've got some more binary for tea. And these robots again were made in our 3D modeling workshop. These robots here, there's one on the other side, was made by artist Helen Jackson, who also led the workshops with Make and Take, family-friendly sessions. And we had another submission, so someone who wasn't able to come in to scan their robot sent this picture in instead. So it was great that we were able to kind of show these different kind of methods of seeing the robots there. And then we had this submission, which I believe you were involved in, Stephen.
Technical advisor, yes.
Yeah, technical advisor, a friend for Span. I'm just going to drop the volume there a little bit. This is really fun, and it's great to have an animated piece of work in here as well.
And yeah, just to say, I mean, we did this just by using a tripod and pointing a smartphone at the floor, and we put lots of things on. A yoga mat actually was the background there.
Right.
All found materials, a construction set that my niece and nephew who did, they did all the work, I must say. That they created the story, they created the visuals, absolutely everything.
And it is lovely, and kind of we work a lot with projecting animation in physical exhibition spaces, so it's great to kind of be able to include things like this in virtual exhibition spaces as well. And we had some other people come in. We had a scanning day at Quad, so if you made a physical robot and you wanted it to be scanned digitally, then you could come in, and these were some robots that were made for that. They came in right at the end, so we weren't able to scan them, so we got these photographs as well. We've got Big Mouth here, which I think is a great design for a robot. And then we're going through to our final room, which involves robots that were made as part of an adult class at Quad called Make Mindful Crafts, which is funded by Derbyshire Mind, supported by Derbyshire Mind as part of our wellbeing project Uplift. And these were made by participants who kind of came to us just to kind of do something a bit more mindful. So it has a kind of more wellbeing feel to it. And I like that idea, and I know we've spoken before about kind of robots that are caring and supportive and there to be a companion. So the idea is that the robot is thinking about all these other robots and all those things. And again, these are other robots that were made in our 3D modeling workshop. These are animated by myself, by the way, just to kind of give a bit of life. So the robots viewing the work are a bit more alive in quotation marks than the robots on display. But there we go. That's Citizens of Robot World. There'll be some small tweaks over the next kind of week or so, and I think, Stephen, we spoke very briefly about this possibly being added to the Work with Robot Day in Coventry, but we'll kind of see where that may lead.
Yeah, we're hoping that this is something that we can build, and the beauty of a virtual art gallery is there's no restrictions on space, there's no restrictions on duration of changing the exhibits. So we're hoping that this is something that grows and that we add more and more rooms as time go on, and we can even perhaps get more creative and go outdoors. Who knows what could be done with this in future. So anybody on the call today who's enjoying that and would like to get involved and help us take that forward, we're all volunteers doing this for Robot Day. Obviously John's a member of staff at Quad, but Robot Day is volunteer led, and we work with partners at various venues around the UK, and we're hoping to expand overseas in future, and this is perhaps our first tentative step to doing that, because this is globally accessible. So that's a fantastic example. I believe, do we have an avatar if we join the room? Can you see how many people are in the gallery, or are you there by yourself? We've lost your volume, John.
Oh, I thought I clicked it then, sorry. You can see a little kind of diamond shape in the room, okay. And you can see how many people are in that. I will urge everyone that's on the stream at the moment to just copy the URL and try it afterwards, because Zoom bandwidth and New Art City bandwidth don't like each other very much. I'm just very fortunate to have a machine and bandwidth that will allow kind of that to be seen. So do try it afterwards. I might pop in there afterwards as well to say hello as well.
Excellent. Okay, so on this point, we're now going to go over to another kind of virtual robot world, and this is the competition that we had to develop a game, and there's prizes to be won, so exciting prize announcement. And at this point, I need to introduce my volunteering colleague, Nick. There he is, he's popped up. Hello, Nick.
Hello.
Thank you for joining us.
You're welcome.
So you've had the enviable job of playing games. Tell us about that.
It's one that is actually pleasantly, surprisingly fun. So I didn't mind doing it.
Excellent. So what can we see on the screen here? Just talk us through that.
So these are some of the entries that the participants have put in, and due to time constraints, I only managed to have a look at 4 of these, but I passed upon my thoughts to yourself and John, and they were used as part of the judging criteria to judge who ended up winning the prizes. And
what were you looking for as judges?
Okay, so in terms of myself, I'll just set out some of the summary of the criteria I considered. So one was, is it fun to play? Would I play it again? Can I see other people playing it again? And how do the features in the game respond to engineering or building a better world?
And why have we chosen engineering a better world as a theme?
So can you repeat your question?
So yeah, I was just interested in that idea of engineering of the better world. That's the motto of the Institution of Engineering and Technology, who we volunteer with. So what does that mean to you in terms of what should be in a game? How can games help us make a better world?
That's a good question. I think that the virtual environment that people, especially with what's happened in the last few years with regards to the pandemic, it allows people another avenue to be able to express themselves. There's that, and then there's also the opportunities for the skills can be developed and talents can be sort of exposed in regards to game design as well. And then there's the engineering sides to it, as well as to the different ideas that people coming through with, like different areas of the games or abilities of certain characters or features that they had in some of the games, which I thought were quite actually nice ideas.
So we can see John demonstrating one of the games here. So this was actually called A Better World, and the developer of this had obviously given some thought to our theme. I had a go at this game. I couldn't get past the first step, so well done, John, there for getting past 3 steps. So that was an interesting point about engineering skills. If you build a game, create a game, what's that got to do with engineering skills?
Well, there's, I suppose, different facets of engineering, isn't there? There's digital engineering in regards to the programming, and you, because I've had a background that I have dabbled in programming languages before, not to that high level, but I've got an awareness of the high level languages like C++, Java, to some of the sort of more ones that I've probably got more experience with VBA, funnily enough, Visual Basics for applications. But depending on what you're trying to do, some of these could be useful for things like game design. So there are lots of digital type skills that are for that. In regards to non-digital, in regards to that, you can actually, for example, the manufacturing of designs and products, that every single thing that's been these virtual games in the physical world, in the real world, has to be designed by people, has to be thought up. So from the chair you sit on to the how we're going to create a picture frame that holds pictures. At some point, somebody over the years would have had to think, right, okay, we need something for this. How are we going to design it? What we're going to make it out of? What's the objective we're trying to get out of it? How much is it going to cost? Where's the materials going to come from? There's all kinds of related questions to those, and that comes under the banner of engineering, in my opinion.
Excellent. Okay, so without further ado, let's go to that big drum roll moment. We've got 2 special mentions first. So would you like to read out the special mentions and why, even though they weren't the winners, that we thought that they were good?
Okay, so I thought Iron Man was one of them, so well done to them. I particularly enjoyed sort of playing that in the sense of the first time ago, sort of with your Iron Man Marvel character, sort of be able to have I think it's the one of the beams that come off him, and the flying around, and being able to take different colours and shades of your different marks, and quite a few, up probably circa up to 25 to 30 different outfits you can have on there. So I thought that was quite a nice idea.
Yeah, that looks lovely, beautifully rendered in the 3D environment there. Lovely job. Second special mention.
Hey, the second one was one called Tweeting Simulator, and I thought that, as my colleagues did, I thought this was professionally done. There was nothing really regards to, I could see, much wrong with the in terms of software bugs. You can play it and not have any glitches, which I think was a definite plus point. You could see how it fit into the better world as well. You have all the things from modern technology, laptops, phones, pets. You can buy things in game and so on. The better world, I suppose, the communication aspects as well, from tweeting better and getting little pets that you can buy, and you can upgrade your backpack and things to more tweets, and have one of those cycles. Okay,
excellent. Yeah, and one of the reasons this wasn't able to progress to the prizes was because we had a particular condition in our terms and conditions that we didn't allow in-app purchases. So it's like, but we really loved the game. So now to the real prizes. Robux up for grabs. So in second place.
Okay, in second place we go of a better world. That is 2,000 Robux, and the winners that is Lockham Campbell, who is age 10, and they are in West Hallam in Derbyshire. Well done.
Excellent. I think we'll just hang on a little second so that John. Oh, this is the version the game that we saw previously. So yeah, we've seen quite a lot of this game. It looks beautiful. What did you particularly like about this?
Okay, one of the things, I didn't actually end up playing this one, neither the entry, so I've had to leave the judgment on these to the other judges. So I'll leave them to come in if they want with the capable description.
Yeah, okay. I think just to kind of expand on that is I think Lachlan, who's 10, the game here is nicely designed. It's got a few modular assets. There's kind of repeat game design. The fact that Lachlan's used the terrain generator in Roblox as well to create the kind of landscape is quite impressive. There's a lot of player aids and assists. So we've got save points. We've got little characters that point you in the direction that you're meant to go, and it's quite simple game design. It doesn't kind of complicate things, which makes it a bit easier to kind of play and for those kind of younger. And this is, for those who don't know, this is called A Better World Obby, and Obby is a kind of platform, a term for platforming games in Roblox. So this is an Obby, which are usually kind of parkour type games where you have to get from A to B and go over a lot of challenges. So and yeah, so we're just kind of really impressed with Lachlan's approach to this, and the thinking about the player and how to help the player through that. Awesome.
And what do they win, John?
So Lachlan wins as a second prize 2,000 Robux, which is the currency that you can spend in game to buy costumes and outfits and things like that.
Excellent. And so the grand final moment, the winning game is.
So that goes to Tower of Joy. So they get 4,500 Roblox. And the prize goes to Adam Zafran, who is aged 8, and his location is Bogor in Indonesia. Well done.
Fantastic. And what was special about this game? What set it apart?
John, do you mind coming in on that one?
I will, yeah. So I think it was very impressive for someone who's 8 to have made this. And just there was a kind of, the fact that it's called Tower of Joy, and there's a joy factor involved. It's quite bright, it's quite colourful, the music is energetic, it makes you want to kind of get up and have another go. I was really, really bad at this one, but I kept wanting to come back and try again and try again and try again. And it's another one that kind of considers helping the player. So you know, if you do fall down, there's an assist here that helps to kind of not have to navigate through it again. So that thinking about that, the bright colors, the textures, there's a goal and a time limit. I'm not sure if you can see it on screen there, the time limit is not on my screen because of the zoom capturing. So there's a challenge element to it, but also if you see on the right hand side, there's a progression element, so you can track your progression and how far you're getting through that. So it's giving you goals and things to kind of aim towards, which, you know, if you're thinking about building a better world, you want that aim, you want that goal, and kind of how to get there. So that's what I thought was really great about this piece.
Fantastic. Okay, so we've overrun a little bit on the games there, but I think it was well worth it because there was so much energy in those games that we wanted to share with the rest of the audience. So congratulations again to the winners. So I've seen Nick's got his hand up.
Yeah, I realised we overrun the list. Do you want me to give a 1-minute background as you requested into why I went into engineering?
Yeah, we'll come back to you when we're going into a chat section. So if you can hang around now, then we'll come to you okay, after we've spoken to some of our other guests. So the first thing to do is welcome Henry Bennett. Are you there, hello. Henry?
Good. Hello. Hello, everyone.
Can you share your video? Have we given?
Yes. 1 second. Start video.
Right, so welcome. Wow, that looks like a proper engineer's office there.
There you go, piled high with stuff.
Thank you for joining us. And Henry, if you were at a previous Robot Day Derby, is the leading light behind the Mars rover project, the Inspiration rover. Did you want to share some pictures of that, Henry?
I certainly can do. Just 1 second. Let me have a quick look into how I do that.
Okay. But while you do that, I'll just give a little bit of background. So Henry's another IET volunteer who was a student at the University of Derby, who are great partners of Robot Day 2. And they applied for funding with the IET to develop a project where young people in the area who came from difficult backgrounds were able to come to the university, learn from the students and the staff at the university, and build their own scale model of a Mars rover. How are you doing there, Henry?
Yeah, so I can share a screen. Is that the best way to do it?
Yes, please. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I could just demonstrate hopefully you're seeing a picture of our little Mars rover on the screen there. Oh, hang on.
Yep, it's just coming now. Oh, beautiful. Okay. Hello, Inspiration.
There we go. So that was our little Inspiration rover, the one that we built together as a group just before we took it out to our rover. We've got a few other pictures. It was a great project. This is an example of the rover at Robot Day in Derby, and we built a Martian surface to prove that the wheels and the legs that we designed could overcome difficult terrain and simulate what it would be like to be a rover on Mars. It could climb rocks and work its way through sand. I must admit, we're still trying to clean sand out of its motors today, 2 years later, but it did successfully manage to do it. It did give me an understanding of how difficult it must have been for the Real Curiosity team to try and keep the Martian dust out of those difficult robot parts.
Yeah, what I like, we've been talking today about how people like to think of robots as people, and I notice you've made your robot look a little friendlier than your typical Mars rover.
Well, I think it's kind of important, you know, and some of what we're talking about is the way art, you know, and robot and engineering, art and engineering have always had the link to me. If you design engineering things without understanding how people relate to those objects, people don't interact with them in very good ways. If you are going to make a robot, you need to give it some kind of little face like we can look at. You know, you need to give it something that you can make it feel like a living thing, and then people bond with it. And I'm a long-time fan of science fiction. I've read hundreds, if not thousands, of science fiction stories. And one of the key parts of that is those robots that control the spaceships. You know, if we're going to use engineering, we're going to use software, we're going to come up with ways of interacting with artificial intelligence. All of this stuff is going to have to be really thought through quite carefully. And
absolutely. One thing I wanted to ask you about, Henry, in particular, so this looks really complicated, it looks really difficult. I know you've now got a degree in electronic and electrical engineering, but you know, we might have some people who are thinking, well, I'm not an engineer, you know, I'm getting on in life a bit, you know. For you though, that didn't stop you, did it?
No, and I think it was a really great thing about this project is, you know, engineering should be almost as fun as sitting in your shed and building model aeroplanes, or, you know, the love that people have always had for building little wooden ships out of matchsticks and sliding them inside a bottle and then pulling up their sails.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
Or knitting or sewing. People love these things. Building a robot can be as simple as that. Doesn't matter what stage you're at in life, whether you're young, whether you're old, doesn't matter what your background is, whether you're just starting out in engineering or whether you're a real seasoned veteran or pro. Yeah. You know, there's something, you can build all kinds of robots which suit all types.
Absolutely, and it's never too late to get an education either.
No, and one of the best ways of getting an education is by doing it and having a go. You know, yeah. And it's fun. It doesn't.
So how old were you when you went to university?
I was 39 when I went back there. So wow. Yeah, well, when I went 20 years late.
And could 15-year-old Henry have seen himself being an engineer? He could build this kind of thing.
Well, I mean, that's a difficult question. I think if someone had inspired me in the right way, then yes. But when I was at school, I just didn't encounter anyone that made me think that it was something that I could do. I can remember being introduced to mathematics, and if someone had told me that I might need trigonometry because it would help me to understand how a robot would work and how I could work out how much energy would need to flow to the wheels to get the thing to go in a straight line, I might have understood. When my 15-year-old self just thought trigonometry had been invented by sadists to make my life a misery.
Well, there we go.
If I'd encountered someone that had inspired me and told me why this stuff could be useful, then I might have got into it.
Fantastic. Well, so from somebody who didn't have an engineering background, who got into creating robots, we'll cut back to, stick around if you can, Henry. We'll come back to have a bit of a panel chat in a minute.
No problem.
But we're going to go back to Stuart, who is primarily an artist, but who builds robots as well. Are you there, Stuart?
Yep. Just is it switching on? Can you see me?
It flickered for a moment. Yeah, there you are. Hello. Very good. So how have we been getting on in the robotic art world?
Oh, yeah. I'm pretty stewed now, but we've produced a lot of human machine kind of art and things. I've put a few links up so people can collect scans of their artwork back on the
fantastic.
website. So you could take a look at that, or I could screen share what we got.
Yes, screen share what we've got. Yeah.
Okay. So here's one.
Oh, beautiful. Yeah. And this is real art on a piece of paper?
This is, well, it's an interesting question. I suppose the only true answer you can give to that is no.
Okay.
You're seeing pixels, but it certainly has come on and off of paper. So yeah, a robot drew it, but there's a whole another process again where it's back inside the computer.
And can you show us the pieces of paper that you've got there?
Oh, certainly.
Oh, fantastic! Yeah, there's the proof.
Yeah.
These are drawings that have come over the internet and been drawn by people in distant lands in your living room.
Absolutely, yeah. So, yep, I'll flick through the ones on screen as well. So, yeah, they've travelled a long way. They've been created partly in somebody else's computer, partly on a server on the internet, partly inside an Arduino, a little single board computer, come out of a robot, scan through a machine, back onto the internet again. So yeah, they've travelled a long way. And,
are you able to show us what the setup in your room looks like?
Yes, I'll try and shift my machine around here.
Well, maybe we could come back to you and you're
well,
moving.
Let's see.
There we go. Oh,
how much of the chaos here can you spot?
We're engineers and artists, two groups of people famous for being chaotic. So
what have I got?
Oh wow, there's your robot.
Yeah.
So does your robot have a name? We're talking about robots and people. Does your robot have a name?
Lamely called it Sketchbot that I made up last night. It doesn't really have a name. You can call it Sketchbot. You can stand the name.
Sketchbot. That sounds pretty good to me. And so, do you have a training as an engineer? Before you built a robot?
No. Right now, I'm doing a master's in AI.
Okay. Well.
So I was interested in joining up the culture between the art world and the engineer world. Because I had a little run-in with Google and it completely surprised me. I was calling myself an artist, and then this kind of tech people kind of got in touch, and I thought, well, that's a whole different way of looking at things. But what I couldn't understand was the people. I knew all about computers, but people come from this world and people come from that world. I couldn't speak both languages. So so now I'm studying a bit of engineering in order to find out about the people.
Excellent. That's a really nice message that's coming through today. So if we've got engineers who've never tried art, we've got some ideas for them. And if we've got artists who think, well, engineering might be for me, then we can get started with that in our in our living rooms. That everything that we need to do that is online. We can educate ourselves, or we can go to university as mature students, like Henry has, and I've gone back to university to learn more as a PhD student right now.
Oh.
So somebody else is online now, ready to join us. I'd like to welcome Henry Wood. Henry, are you there?
Hello. Hi.
Hi, Henry.
Let's see. How are you?
Okay, so are you in the artist camp or the engineer camp, or a bit of both?
Well, I think I'm sort of officially more in the engineer camp, but I've always enjoyed art, and I've always sort of thought of myself as a fairly creative person. So yeah, I'm a sort of amateur artist who's an engineer by trade.
Okay, so you went to school, did your physics and maths, and went to university, that kind of route into engineering?
Yes, yeah. I mean, I must say I didn't ever do particularly well at school, because I think I was just always too obsessed with making things. Actually, I spent almost all my time at high school at A levels just in the CDT department, sawing things up and filing things and drilling things, and I didn't put enough time in the classroom because I was too into the sort of physical hands-on side of things. But I went to university. I did a mechatronics degree, and then I worked in engineering most of my career. And about 4 or 5 years ago, we set up a robotics company called Anovo.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
How's that been launching out on your own?
No, it's been rewarding and challenging at the same time. I think it's a sort of common story you hear people say, but the first few years, myself and the other guy that I set it up with, we just bootstrapped, as they call it, just basically sort of working for free and putting in a bit of our own money, and then we managed to raise some investment about 3 years ago, and we built up a team, and we're just getting our product to market at the moment. So it's exciting times, but the stakes go up as it goes further.
We've been talking about accessibility to robots and engineering. I believe that's a special feature of Innovo robots.
Yeah, I mean, what we've done is we built, what we realized was a lot of robots were being used in sort of mass production by big corporates, but small companies had very little access to robots, and they were still a big barrier. It's still really quite difficult to program industrial robots. They're quite expensive to set up. You've got to know a lot about safety. All these things basically mean people that aren't making mass volumes really struggle. But we wanted to make a product where little companies could learn how to program robots and use them themselves. So we built our software around Blockly. So the way that you program our robot is by using the Google Blockly framework, where you just drag functions out of the toolbox and you plug them together on the screen, and then you can run the robot and debug it like that.
And people might be familiar with that through school themselves, or through their children or family at school, because there's a famous educational software built on the same technology, right?
Yeah, I mean, Google now own Blockly. I'm not sure who the original inventors were, but they've sort of made it open source, and I think it started off as a tool to teach children, and it's the perfect tool for us, because we're teaching people working in manufacturing who don't have any background in programming how to program. So it works really nicely.
So the tool I'm thinking of is Scratch, which I know is used in a lot of schools in Derbyshire at least, and probably more widely around the world. It's also the technology that drives microbit programming. If anybody's been involved in Robot Day before, they might have come across microbits with us, and they're around the world. Now, the reason I asked you to join us today, Henry, is because you've been involved in an exciting project recently. Can you tell us something about that?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'll share a few pictures to sort of fill in the gaps. So about 6 months ago, we were invited to help put together one of the ITV idents. So idents are the little commercials at the end of the advertisements that have the logo for that channel. So BBC had one famously for a while. ITV have been doing their own ones for the last 3 or 4 years, called ITV Creates. And so we were invited to collaborate with an artist called Nadeem Chowdhury, who works in fabrics and creates installations using really rich colour fabrics, to help them put together an ITV advert, and that's just started airing this month in November.
Fantastic. And what was that experience like?
Well, it was great. I mean, it was really nice to be doing something that mixed art and engineering, because, you know, day to day we make robots that are intended to go into sort of production lines, into factory environments, and sort of very functional engineering environments, and it's really nice to do something that's got a really big creative component with it.
Fantastic.
really fun to be part of the filming process and going and doing an installation in an unusual location.
Yeah, and maybe you could put a link in our chat for people to go and have a look at the video of your robots in action.
Sure. Yeah.
That'd be wonderful. So can you stick around for a few minutes, Henry?
Of course, yeah. I can run through some slides if you're interested.
Yeah, okay. We've got another couple of minutes. Yeah, okay. Go on then.
So, I mean, basically what we did was we were working with the artist. He came up with some concepts of how we were going to build the logo using fabrics, and so we made a simulation of that. This is what our software looks like. So you can see the Blockly on the left, where you basically just plug together different components, and then we have a 3D visualization on the right, so we could mock up the idea. And this works in VR as well. So VR is becoming much more accessible with the Oculus, which is only £300 now. So we use VR a lot to sort of simulate these things, which is a really nice way of exploring it. And then we went to the ITV. They found some locations. We got some good places in London where we had a sort of rustic environment in Peckham Rye waiting room, which is a really big hall, which we used as a location for that. And so we set up the logo. The artist created all of the panels with the fabric on them, and then we had a metal frame underneath to hold the robots. and mounted the robots and built it up. And so they had the idea of the eye being built out of these sort of jigsaw pieces, all covered in fabric. And then the T was a sort of coffer, which could be filled with fabric to build up the colour. And the V was this stack of poles. And so we were laying fabrics across those. And then the idea would be that the camera would sweep over and start off with sort of close-ups where you couldn't really make out what was going on and there was no context. And as the camera moved up over the top, you could see the full ITV logo spelled out. So this is what the final bit looks like. Whether it will play over Zoom, I don't know. I'll try.
Oh, yep, we're getting that. Thank you. Wow, that looks amazing.
And yeah, I'll put the link in and you can see. So what they did was they basically documented the whole process. So sort of us brainstorming and us doing prototyping and then putting it all together and then the final recording. And what they do is they fragment those into little clips, and throughout November they'll just release the different clips. So it's really nice to see. It was really good fun to be working with a creative team and seeing behind the scenes how TV production works as well, because I've never seen the process where the way the cameras are moved and all of the logistics that goes into it.
And an awful lot of engineering as well.
Yes, yeah,
absolutely. So on the subject of engineering, I'm going to come back to Nick now. Nick, we were just wondering how you got into engineering and games and how that all fits together for you.
Okay, well, it's just that, Stephen. So I have got a BSc in Maths and Action at Cardiff University, and currently working in healthcare as an analyst. My first real work experience engineering is working in an engineering environment, manufacturing engineering, with Rolls-Royce from February 17 to September 18. And this inspired me, along with other people who were studying with the Open University at the time, to actually start studying an integrated masters in engineering in October 17. I've also volunteered with a charitable organisation, Eng4, since April 20, regards to medical device engineering and face protection, and also solutions for the NHS as well. And I've got a current bursary from the ID, the Horizons bursary, and I recently got the ID Inspire Support and Achieve Award for the Gerald Forum Memorial Trophy as well. So that was great to have. So that was a team effort on the latter for the work with Eng4. So I suppose, does that cover your question, Stephen?
Yeah, that's great. So it's interesting to hear about medical robots. We've not talked about those today. Have you seen medical robots?
I personally haven't off the top of my head, but the engineering exposure and the medical side of the Evolve 2 is more about, for example, looking into actual physical face protection and things like that.
Okay, right, very good. So I just want to throw a few questions out there to the panel now. Just looking for some real bullet point answers here. So what is your top tip for somebody who wants to get into robotics or art or AI or digital creation? So come to you first, John.
I'm going to say just give something a go. Not to kind of put those barriers up yourself. Just try something out, because you might not connect with the first thing you try, but the next thing you might try works really well. But also to go to an art gallery and to see some work and see how engineering and technology translates into the art world as well, because there's a lot of engineering that goes into a gallery exhibition, even if it's just putting some pictures on the wall sometimes. And I will just drop in very, very quickly. Henry, you reminded me, I went to the ITV Creates link, and Megan Broadmeadow, the artist that I mentioned earlier in my talk, she created one of those idents as well.
Okay.
And it's very, very engineering focused, even to the point of using drones. So do check out that link that was part of Henry's video.
Excellent. And so Henry Bennett, what's your top tip for getting involved?
Well, I mean, just I suppose look around locally. There'll probably be a lot more things available locally than you might think, but it can just be hard to find them. But go to your local universities, go to your local schools, and I just try and encourage people to get out there and form little groups and put messages out there, find other people that like doing the same things that you do, and not be scared to set something up themselves. I mean, I set up Inspiration Rover because it was the kind of project I wanted to be part of, and I couldn't find anything like that available to me. And with a little bit of encouragement from yourself there, Stephen, I just said, right, well, I'd like to be part of a project. I'd like to work on robots. I want to do something practical with my my engineering study. And so set something up yourself. The IET is a fantastic organization. There's a lot of resources available there for people, but like a lot of things, you know, you've got to go and ask for it. If you keep in touch with the IET and drop them an email, if you're interested in being part of something like that, drop them an email and tell them the kind of thing that you'd like to do and how you would like to understand engineering and what you want to have a go at. And very likely they'll point you in the direction of other people that like similar things. So, you know, that's kind of how it worked for me, and it's been fantastic. I really enjoyed it, and it really made my engineering seem creative and fun rather than dry and theoretical and boring like it can be presented, you know.
So again, that message, you've got to get stuck in and give it a go. So Stuart, what's your top tip for people who want to get involved in all of this?
I think I'm probably thinking very much the same as everybody else. My spin on it maybe is that I come at it with a bit of a kind of rebel attitude, maybe. I started because it was something no one could stop me doing. And a thing like this, little single board computer, cost me like £4. Amazingly powerful. If you want to do it, just do it.
Excellent. And we just had a comment in the chat saying, happy to hear from you all. This gives us the promotion to think beyond the boundaries, especially for aspiring people like me. Thank you all. So we've inspired somebody today, which is great because that's what Robot Day is all about. So coming to you, Henry Wood, what's your top tip for people to get involved?
I mean, I was going to echo something very similar, really, that I think robotics need, you know, you can get people that are really good at all of it, but you know, there's so many different disciplines with software, with hardware, with electronics, with low level, with graphics. So it works. It's the best kind of group thing because you get all these people with different skills to come together. So finding a makerspace locally, getting involved in that. You know, if you live somewhere remote and there's nothing like that nearby, I'm sure there are lots of online communities where you can be just as much part of a project that you can pull together. And I think that's the best way to get started. Like Stuart said, I mean, the Arduino boards and the ESP32s and things, they're really affordable, and there's so much information online that you can just buy something off eBay and get started within a day.
Oh, your favorite global marketplace. Yes, we've got people from Nigeria and Pakistan with us today, so we really are reaching that global that global audience. And hello to you wherever you are. So Nick, your top tip for engineering or robotics or art, getting involved?
I'd say, like the other panelists have said, is actually go out and use motivation to get contacts, network with people, find out what interests you, what opportunities there are, and pounce on them. Because if you don't try, then that opportunity will pass you by.
Thank you, and that's a nice note to finish on. We're a couple of minutes over, so I'm going to draw this to a close now. But yeah, we've started off talking about the relationship between people and robot and arts, and we've come back to that to remember that, you know, doing this is something you can get involved in on your own from your computer, but ultimately we're a human race, and yeah, working together is what moves us forwards and helps us engineer a better world. So on that positive note, I'd like to thank all my guests. So we got Henry and John, Stuart, Nick, and Henry number 2. Thank you so much for taking time out your days to join us and help us build this. Thanks to our partner organisations, Robot Day, the Quad, and the Institution of Engineering and Technology. We've got a recording of this whole event, so if you missed any of it, that'll be available on the IET East Midlands YouTube channel. So just zip over there to YouTube and look us up. We've got those other videos from earlier talks that we've done in the build up to this event. And we'll be doing more. We're back with Robot Day for real, in person, on the ground, and hopefully virtually as well, on the 7th and the 8th of May in Coventry, where we're part of the City of Culture Festival. And again, a big exploration of that intersection between the arts and science, technology, engineering and mathematics. Thank you everybody who joined us. That's it from us. Goodbye from me and goodbye from Bobot.